Well, good morning, folks. I'm next to the Icelandic sheep here. These are little cuties. They've got so much character, actually. Got a lot more character than our sheep. Real personalities. Look at the horns on that ram. Incredible. So I thought we'd do some questions for the Zoom groups from here in front of the sheep. So let's get straight into this, because this is going to be a pretty meaty study. You want to start off by reading Matthew chapter 11, 1 to 2. Matthew 11, 1 to 2. And also Mark chapter 6, verses 21 to 31. 21 to 31. Before we go any further, I want you to make the comparisons between Elijah and John the Baptist, Ahab and Herod, and Jezebel and Herodias. And while you're making these comparisons between them and drawing parallels between them, I want you to just think in your group, what was going on in the thinking process of Elijah and John? What was going on in the thinking process of Ahab and Herod? And what was going on in the thinking process of Jezebel and Herodias? Really interesting. Straight to just to kick us off there. So now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18 verses 21 to 22. I'm sure you know what that is. That's Elijah on top of Mount Carmel. And also to Matthew 11:7. Matthew 11:7. So we're talking here about the same thing. Elijah on Mount Carmel said, how long are you going to falter between two opinions? Jesus talks about people that are like a reed swayed in the wind. And in the New Testament, it talks about people being swayed by the wind of false doctrine. So, name 3 areas today that the church as a whole need to make up their mind about, instead of being in two opinions and swaying. 3 areas today in which the church as a whole needs to make up its mind about regarding the Word of God. Okay then, let's move on. So let's have a look at Mark chapter 6 verses 27 to 31. Mark 6, 27 to 31. First of all, what was Jesus' opinion of John the Baptist? What did Jesus think of John the Baptist? And number 2, how must this news of John being killed in such a horrible way, how must this news have affected Jesus? Remember, they were related. How must this news have affected Jesus? And then finally, have you ever received news that has taken the wind out of your sails, and did you need to stop and rest? Did you need to then stop and rest? Okay. Very quickly turn to Psalm 23 and read Psalm 23 together. And here's just a very quick question. Do you see yourself as a sheep? Remember, King David said, "The Lord is my shepherd." Do you see yourself as a sheep? And have you ever sensed in yourself the kind of stubbornness that you see in sheep? These sheep here can get their heads through these tiny little pieces of wire. And if you can see how big these holes are, they're so small that when they've got their head through it, particularly the ones with the horns on, they can't get back out. So they can get in, but they can't get out. Do you see yourself as a sheep? And have you ever noticed any sheepish tendencies in your own life? Okay. Mark chapter 6 then. Mark chapter 6 verse 31 to 37. Mark 6 verse 31 to 37. So have you ever, with the help of Jesus, fed someone else with the Word? Have you ever, with the help of Jesus, fed somebody else with the Word? Whether that be Sunday school, whether that be a men's group, whether that be a women's group, whether that's sharing the gospel or some kind of Bible teaching, Have you ever done that? I've shared with you many a time when we were at Biddulph, we were part of a team that ran a Sunday school. And we'd go out after the main meeting for 2 hours, we'd round up all the kids. And it was a privilege. And I can remember one of the young men that I taught, he's now a preacher. He's now a preacher. So it's a privilege to see that. Sometimes you see things like that. And he's married and he lives in Denmark with his parents who are also in the ministry, and they're going around. In fact, they go all over the place, teaching and preaching and equipping people. So my question is, have you ever fed someone with the word, whether that be in Sunday school or women's groups, men's groups, sharing the gospel, teaching, whatever? What did it feel like to share that word with that person and be a part of the process of feeding that person with the word? Okay, let's move on. Mark chapter 6, verses 37 to 44. Mark 6, 37 to 44. Why is it so important that we are all eating the same food? Why is it so important that we are all eating the same food? Have a look at this. There's a few scriptures now. 1 Timothy 1:3. 1 Timothy 1:3. Philippians 2:20 to 23. John chapter 6 verse 35. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 3. Hebrews chapter 5 12 to 14. Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 15. Ezekiel 34 verse 14. And Revelation chapter 2 verse 17. And then go back to Mark chapter 6 again, from verse 42 to 45. So here is the ending. Before the next storm, before the next birth pang comes upon the world, thousands of people need to be fed with the bread of life, with the word of God. Here's the question: will you help to feed them? Have a wonderful Zoom group together, guys. God bless you.